One of the things that, I suppose if I ask you what is the most significant thing in church history, was it the crucifixion or was it the resurrection? What was it? The resurrection. What is the least preached about thing in the church today? Resurrection. What is the most talked about? The cross and crucifixion. In fact, I would suggest that the majority of people, the reason they live in delusion is they live with the idea of the cross and they don't go any further. They're trapped in religion. And they haven't appreciated where it all leads. The Western church, the preaching tends to be majored on the crucifixion. And they leave out the resurrection. They'll mention it. But you see, the resurrection is the only way into life, not the crucifixion. In fact, Paul wrote to the Corinthian church and he said, if there be no resurrection of the dead, we're all men most miserable. There's no hope. The hope was in the resurrection. The hope wasn't in the crucifixion. There have been many, many people throughout history who have died for their beliefs, died for their faith. You'll read it in Hebrews chapter 11, sawn asunder, crucified, stoned to death, burnt. They were men of faith. The thing that made Jesus Christ different from every other religion, every other faith, the thing that makes Christianity stand out is our God rose in bodily form from the dead. It wasn't a spirit that rose. He rose in bodily form. His flesh did not see corruption, and he rose from the dead. And that is not believed by most people. Christ is in heaven, sitting at the right hand of the Father. He is not only the Son of God, he's the Son of Man. Still, his humanity is as alive today as his divinity is. Miracles happen when you understand truth. God will confirm his word, always with miracles. A miracle a day keeps the devil away. I find so many people, I tell them, if you go to a church where you don't see miracles, that's blind eyes open, deaf ears unstopped, cripples walking, and cancers withering. If you don't see that, and that means the manifestation, you can actually see it. If you don't see it, forget it. You haven't found a church yet. Wherever Jesus is, there's always miracles. And so I want to spend time just laying down some groundwork in your hearts and minds. Now, you have to do violence with some of your minds. Afraid. Strongholds of Satan are in the mind, in your reasonings and imaginations. See, one of the things that really cripples the church is the idea that God is very happy with us suffering. God does not like disease. God does not like sickness. In fact, my God is a good God. My God cares. Jesus, when he looked on the multitude, it says he looked out and had compassion on them. He healed everyone that was sick. And the nature of God and the humanity of God has been left out of the gospel. What we have now is people all trying to be spiritual. They're trying to get in the spirit. Let's look at the scriptures. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. You've got to challenge your preconceptions. See, we're all people who've learned by the traditions we've grown up with, the people that we relate to, the kind of culture we come from. We get an idea of what it should be. And we get caught. And because it was that way with so many people, we assume it's right. We don't bother to look at the scriptures to see if it's wrong. We assume it's right. And it's only when someone begins to challenge that then your thinking starts. And God, one thing God did, he gave us a sound mind to think with. He never intended us to just be people who are non-thinking people. Christians are the most creative people. Why? Because Christianity brought education. Christianity brought freedom of thinking. Christianity has brought a whole realm of things to people, and we're the most creative people on the earth. Because God lives in us. Christ lives in our mortal flesh. We think different from everyone else. That's why Christianity is so wonderful. You know, knowledge, all knowledge is in God. He created everything, put it on the earth. And we as Christians are the most creative, productive people on the whole earth. That's a wonderful thing to know, isn't it? And I want to talk about the creativity of our God. My God is creator of heaven and earth. If you're not a believer in Christ as creator, then you're not a Christian. You couldn't be. If you don't believe that the whole of creation was in 6 days, forget it. You'll never be a Christian. You're certainly not a born-again Christian. Can't be. And so I just want to spend some time. We're in Corinthians. Okay, let's look at this. Here's one of the biggest errors in the Bible by the Western Church. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 2, verse 2, "For I'm determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." And it's amazing how the evangelicals have latched onto it, and it's Jesus Christ and him crucified they're locked into. And yet, if you go to the Greek, you discover that's not what it says. What it does say